Hello again, I am Blunty, and this is the Razer Kishi, and this is Genshin Impact. It's a free-to-play game that launched yesterday, and is the big hype. If you're curious about it, I did a video on it last week, linked in the down below. In short, it is one of very few free-to-play games I'm excited by, and even fewer mobile games that I'm excited by. And the reason I'm talking about it again now is it's multi-platform: PC, PS4, iPhone, iPad, Android, which also makes it one of very few mobile games I'm interested in. And it is in fact the reason I reached out to Razer about getting a review sample of their spanky new mobile game controller, the Razer Kishi. It is unlikely you can use a controller for doing this, but I would appreciate it if you use your mouse and or touchpad to thumb this video, subscribe, make sure you hit the bell, leave a comment especially, because we all must do our part in fighting against the evil overlord that is the YouTube algorithm, which it just makes me sad sometimes. But your help makes me slightly happier. Thank you. As a cross-save title, unless you're a PlayStation player suffering under the arrogant selfish brutality of Sony, I was looking forward to making my main progress on Genshin Impact on PC, then relaxing into some lower tier material grinding and map exploration on mobile while curled in front of the TV. Sounds delightful. All while sharing the same control scheme I'm using on PC and avoiding the misery of touchscreen directional input and the absolute lack of feel and tactile feedback and soul-smashing sadness that is touchscreen buttons. Unfortunately, as it turns out, Genshin Impact on mobile does not support either Android's or iOS's built-in API-level support for controllers, for no reason I can name. It's insanity, really. The game has a perfectly working control scheme interface for PC and PS4. Why wouldn't they implement it on mobile? Don't know, shrug, makes me angry. But whatever, that kinda nuked my plan for using this game as my main touchstone for my review of the Kishi, so plan B, some other games. Minecraft is the obvious starting point as a prime choice to test for me as far as familiar control feel goes. It's a game I've been playing on PC and console for something like 7 or 8 years now, while most of that time has been on keyboard and mouse because not insignificant amounts of time has been spent playing with controllers too, so I'm very familiar with how it should feel. I have long considered Minecraft on mobile basically unplayable with the terrible on-screen controls of its touchscreen-only interface, but the Razer Kishi changes everything. It feels very much like playing the Switch version now, a bit better perhaps, because the thumbsticks on the Kishi stand prouder than the Joy-Cons do, and have a slightly larger concave pad, which is my personal preference over the domed pads, and they have significantly more travel, giving you finer and easier control finesse. The travel is slightly less than an Xbox controller, and the resistance and springback is somewhere between the Joy-Con and the Xbox. The main input face buttons are also larger than the Joy-Con, but smaller than the Xbox, and the feel has more travel and more pleasant tactile soft click than the Joy-Con do, but not quite as positive as the Xbox. Are you sensing a pattern yet? The shoulder buttons too are more tactile in feedback than the Joy-Con, very close to the Xbox in fact, while the triggers, unlike the Joy-Con, are properly analog, hooray for that, don't feel nearly as good as the Xbox triggers do. There's a kind of roughness, almost a grittiness to the movement. But the ergonomics are nice, they sit under finger well enough, and the responsiveness and analog control is good. Finally, the D-pad. Very similar in tactility to the one on the Xbox, but slightly larger in fact. And we won't talk about the Joy-Con's quote-unquote D-pad. But I do like the D-pad. For old-school arcadey stuff and emulation work, it'll do quite nicely indeed. On the note of compatibility, unlike some controllers, the Razer, both in its Android and iOS compatible versions, runs natively. No need to install any support apps, no need to do any configuration, no need to do any mapping. Any game that uses the built-in controller API for either system will simply just work. Razer do have an app for it, but that's got nothing to do with configuration. That is just to make it easier to find games that can use controllers in the first place. Build-wise, it feels pretty good. It has the ability to collapse down to make it easier to carry in a bag, but you can't use it like this. The controller has no Bluetooth or anything like that, so you have to unfold it and physically connect it to your phone via USB 3, or in the case of the Apple version, of course, the Lightning port. And this design helps with generally broad compatibility of different phone sizes. My Pixel 4a and Pixel 4 XL were my test cases for representing the two common screen sizes, and both worked perfectly well. And if you're using a case, this rubber insert can be removed to make more room for that. But because of the folding nature of this device, it does mean that it doesn't have a rigid back, which makes it a slightly floppy fit. A bit distracting at first, but genuinely in-game it wasn't an issue, as it would only really flex upwards, which is not the direction of natural pressure from your hands placed in normal play. It also has a pass-through charge port on the bottom, smartly placed so you can feed your phone power while gaming without it getting in the way of your grip. And it also has channels on the bottom there for the common position of your phone's main speakers, so they're not muffled when this thing is attached. Now, speaking personally, I've historically had near zero interest in mobile gaming. As like I said in the opening, the only reason I even asked to check out the Kishi in the first place was in the hopes of using it with Genshin Impact. So it actually has been many years, I think, since I've tried a controller made for mobile devices specifically. I think the most recent example was the Steelseries Nimbus, and even that was more or less just a console controller clone made compatible with iOS and tvOS, and in fact sold and marketed more for Apple TV than actual practical use on a mobile device. But this, more than any mobile controller I've seen or tried, hits the sweet spot between being genuinely mobile friendly without a heavy compromise on controller feel or features. It really does make your phone feel like a slightly nicer Nintendo Switch, and feeling somewhere between a legit Xbox controller and the Switch Joy-Cons as far as the controls themselves feel, well, that's a piece of solid ground for gaming to stand upon as far as I'm concerned. I think it's far more practical and comfortably balanced than those weird clip-style controller situations. I think it's a far better feeling than those weird passive contact pad things, which I have tried and just never bothered to do a video about and threw them away because they're garbage. And the folding design makes it easier to bring with you than some of the other similarly horizontal but rigid and spring-loaded clamp-style controllers we've seen. It's a carefully considered balance of benefits, and I like it quite a lot. Definitely worth checking out if you're in the market for a mobile controller. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. Thanks as always to the glorious patrons scrolling up above there with D-pad control, not mouse scroll wheel. I guess that was a reference there I was trying to make. I lost it. It didn't work. Thanks for watching. I'm Blunty. I'll catch you next time.